Hey, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. Based on the title of this video, you might know that this is going to be the last video I do on my Evermore series. So I figured we would end it by doing a tier list of all of the songs so you can kind of know where I sit with the album at the end of the day. And then my other thoughts for this video was to combine Folklore and Evermore into one perfect album, like cut certain tracks from certain ones. That was an idea that I had before listening to both bodies of work, and now I completely understand why they're two separate albums, because yes, they're sister albums and they are closely related, but the tracks are so completely different and the themes are so different. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do my original idea, but the second half of this video is going to be a head-to-head of just songs that I like better. So like it'll be track 1 versus track 1. So if you're interested in that, that will also be in today's video. I'll try to include some timestamps, that way you can maybe just listen to the part that you might be interested in. But let's just get straight into the Evermore ranking. Alright, so I'm going to put up the screen recording right now, that way we can follow along together while we do it. So now that you can see it on the screen, you can see that we have 5 different categories. Most of them were pre-made, but I kind of edited them a little bit. The top tier is My Soul Left My Body, so that's obviously an A tier, S tier, whatever, it's incredible. The next one is Goddamn What a Jam, like I would totally listen to this. Casual Foot Tap is, I'm not really going to skip it, but I'm not reaching for it, basically. Not my preference, is really just something that if it played, maybe I would skip it, but if someone wanted to listen to it, I would. And then skipping without no one's looking, it's just, I'm embarrassed to tell you guys that I didn't really like it that much. So we'll get started with the first track, which was Willow. With no context, I feel like Willow belongs in the B tier, which is Goddamn What a Jam. All of these are probably subject to change, but that's kind of my initial thoughts with this song. Also the track list is a little bit out of order, so I'm going to try to go in chronological order from memory, so I might be wrong on a couple, but I do know track 2 is Champagne Problems, and if you watch that video, you would have to know that that is My Soul Left My Body. That is complete S tier for sure. And then moving into track 3, that would be Gold Rush, and I already feel like I'm going to have the problem of wanting to put a lot of things in S tier, which it probably deserves it, but I want to be a little bit more conservative right now, just in case if I want to change some opinions. But I really want to put Gold Rush in My Soul Left My Body. I really like that song as well. Then track 4, I want to say, is Tis the Damn Season, which I also really like that song too. I think for now I'm going to put that in Goddamn What a Jam, but I'm going to put it at front of Willow because I liked it a little bit more than Willow. Track 5 was Happiness, I think. No, that was Tolerated. Tolerated is Casual Foot Tap. I think it's a great song, but I kind of think Happiness was almost the better track 5 worthy. And also, based on the track 5s that I've already listened to, I really like the song, but it's probably my least favorite of the track 5s. So I feel like that's why it's going in Casual Foot Tap, but again, these are all subject to change. I'm having a hard time remembering what track 6 was, but I think it's Nobody No Crime, and that is also another Casual Foot Tap. Is it something that I constantly go listen to again? No, but the initial reaction that I had just because the storyline was so cool really cemented as a really fun song, but like once the novelty kind of runs out, I'm not sure if it's something that I would personally listen to that much. Now we're at the point where I genuinely don't know the track list anymore, so I'm going to say Coney Island is next. And this one might be a little controversial, but I think I'm going to put that in Not My Preference, because I enjoyed it in the moment, and that was like middle of the album road because I didn't know where the album was going to go. And it's not that it's really D-worthy, it's really not. It's just there's so many good songs on Evermore that this one just kind of falls behind for me personally. Okay, Dorothea is a Not My Preference, so now I'm actually going to change Coney Island. I think Coney Island deserves to be Casual Foot Tap, and Dorothea was kind of just middle of the road, like I mentioned for me. Happiness, I would say Goddamn What a Jam. Feels like a weird thing to say given the subject matter of the song, but it's not really a jam, but it's a good song, so I feel like it definitely deserves at least that B tier. Then next one from my memory would be Ivy, and if you watch that video, I think I literally titled it something about top tier, and that is clearly a My Soul Left My Body. I still think that might be my favorite song from the album, to be honest, but it could go head-to-head with some other ones as well. Marjorie made me actually very emotional, so I think good art is things that can do that, so I feel like just because of that, it's going to get Goddamn What a Jam, which again is a very weird category ranking for this album, but I still think it's definitely like B, A tier, whatever this is. Cowboy Like Me is an interesting one because in its initial, I probably would have put that in like Goddamn What a Jam or Casual Foot Tap, but I think part of that was like I really didn't understand the song that much. And then I kind of read your guys' comments, and then I've been sitting with this album for a little while now. Like outside of the videos that I make, I listen to these albums pretty regularly. And in recent listens, it's gotten a lot better to me. So I kind of want to put it in the S tier, but it might fall. But I'm going to put it there for right now. Closure treads the line of not my preference and skip. While I appreciate the different type of production, I just genuinely think it wasn't my preference. So I feel like that's where it's going to go, because now that I'm thinking about it, I genuinely don't think any Evermore song would be a skip. There are just some that aren't my favorite, I guess. So Evermore's going to kind of follow suit there. I think that's another one that's kind of not my preference. I liked Exile a little bit more if we're talking about the Justin Vernon collaborations. So that's kind of where I'm just going to put that one with no really explanation. Long story short is a My Soul Left My Body. I really enjoyed that song. I love the subject matter. I really liked that bridge where she was talking to her past self. I think that's a really cool self-reflection moment. So I really liked that song. But that's kind of my ranking here. I did notice that the 2 bonus tracks are not included, but I definitely would put Right Where You Left Me in this first tier, My Soul Left My Body. And then I'd probably put It's Time to Go and Goddamn What a Jam. But now I'm going to go look at this one more time and just make sure that I'm pretty confident with my ranking. Champagne Problems definitely deserves to be there. Gold Rush, I still agree with that. Ivy. Cowboy Like Me is the questionable one. Long Story Short deserves to be there. Okay, I think I'm going to move 'Tis the Damn Season to the top tier, and I'm going to move Cowboy Like Me to the very first song in the B tier. And I think that makes it a little bit better. Other than that, I think these fall pretty nicely. The only one I regret a little bit is Evermore being in not my preference. I feel like it could maybe be Casual Foot Tap, but I know that if I keep looking at this, like I mentioned in red and all the tiers I make, the more I look at it, the more I could probably change it. So I think I'm just going to leave it with this and let you guys tear it to bits. Tell me that I'm wrong. But like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, this is a very skipless album. I would listen to this all the way through. Folklore, I could also do that too, but Folklore, I would want to listen to it track by track because I feel like it has a story. Evermore, I feel like you could most likely just put it on shuffle and I would enjoy each song individually. I don't think I would need to sit and listen to the album in full if I didn't have time. Folklore is kind of like more of an experience to me where if I'm going to listen to it, I want to hear it from start to finish. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I view the 2 albums. But that's honestly the perfect segue into the second half of the video. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that the second half of this video was going to be taking track 1 versus track 1 and saying which song I prefer. So as you can see on the screen, I have both of the albums pulled up and I'm just going to talk about why I prefer one over the other. So I'm just kind of curious to see how many tracks I prefer from each album. And then when I was pre-planning this, I kind of realized that there's going to be some instances where I'm going to want to give it an equals. So I'm reserving the right to do 1 equals. And I don't know which one I'm going to use it for, but I already know I'm going to use that once. So I want to preface it before we start. But let's start looking. So the first track by track would be The One versus Willow. I think this one's an easy one for me, and I would pick the Willow to win this first fight. So track 2 would be Cardigan versus Champagne Problems, and I think that one is next to impossible for pretty much anyone that has ever listened to both of these songs. My initial gut wants to say Cardigan, but I think Champagne Problems is amazing. So I think I'm going to give this one my one and only equals, and we'll just have to make hard decisions from here on out. The Last Great American Dynasty versus Gold Rush. I really liked these 2 tracks individually for one specific reason, because if you watched those 2 videos, it was kind of a while ago now. I really like songs that have historical references, and both of these had that to me. So this one's also a kind of a tough one, but if I'm going to go on strict replayability or what I would listen to, I'm going to go with Gold Rush on this one. Next up is Exile versus 'Tis the Damn Season. I mentioned a couple minutes ago that I like Exile more than Evermore, but 'Tis the Damn Season is kind of that song, so I'm also gonna go Evermore on this one. Track 5 versus track 5 is going to be My Tears Ricochet versus Tolerate It. That one's a pretty easy one for me, maybe not for others, but I'm very much going to pick My Tears Ricochet for this one. This seems way more personal and emotional rather than Tolerate It, and Tolerate It is very sad, but I feel like this one just had a lot more connections to her, and I feel like you can kind of feel that in that song. Next, track 6 would be Mirror Ball versus Nobody No Crime. I think Nobody No Crime is really fun, but I've been sitting with Folklore a little bit longer, and I find myself relating to Mirror Ball, unfortunately. So I do think I'm going to pick Mirror Ball here, which I think is an underrated track from what I understand, like based on comments, and I now see more Taylor Swift-esque things on TikTok, partially maybe because of this, but I feel like Mirror Ball is a little bit underrated by the community, so I'm gonna stand its ground and be its one fan. Next would be 7 versus Happiness, and I like Happiness. I also liked 7, but if I'm going to replay a song, I usually like to somewhat relate to them, I guess. And 7 just really didn't have that one for me, so that's kind of why I'm picking Happiness over the other. August versus Dorothea. This is a clear August. I think August is one of the best songs on Folklore, and also I think Dorothea is more of a middle-of-the-road song anyway, so this one was kind of easy to me. Mine would be This Is Me Trying versus Coney Island. This one's a tough one because they're both kind of the more forgettable tracks to me. I'm having a little bit hard time of remembering This Is Me Trying, and Coney Island, from what I remember, is more, again, middle of the road to me. So I'm kind of indifferent towards this one, but I think I'm just going to pick This Is Me Trying because I remember liking that one a little bit more. But I would probably have to listen to both of those again to kind of give a more accurate ranking. Illicit Affairs versus Ivy is kind of unfair to me because I really enjoy both of those songs. I will admit that I started liking Illicit Affairs a little bit more just because I've seen her perform it on TikTok at her Eras tour, and it seems like a really cool moment for the concert. But Ivy was probably my favorite song from Evermore, so it definitely has to go to Ivy on that one. Invisible String versus Cowboy Like Me is another almost impossible one. I almost wish I had my equal sign for this one, but I think I'm gonna give it to Invisible String. I don't really have a very concrete reason why, but I think I would play that one a lot more than I would play Cowboy Like Me, just because it took me a little while to understand Cowboy Like Me, and Invisible String is pretty straightforward, and I just really enjoyed the way it sounded. Mad Woman versus Long Story Short is actually a pretty easy one for me. I definitely will pick Long Story Short. I liked Mad Woman, but that one was definitely a middle-of-the-road Folklore song to me. Epiphany versus Marjorie is an interesting one because I'm just realizing it now, but I'm pretty sure Epiphany is a song that I got a comment on the video saying that it had something to do with her grandpa going to war. And then it's also interesting that the same track on the album Forevermore is about her grandma. So I feel like that's kind of interesting. I don't know if that was intentional, but I'm going to go Team Grandma and say that Marjorie was the better song. So next up would be track 14, which is Betty versus Closure, which is kind of weird because Closure is like basically the end of Evermore, while Betty still feels like the middle of Folklore. But song versus song, I liked Betty a lot more just because I think the production on Closure is still something that I'm getting used to. And I really like the harmonicas on Betty. Peace versus Evermore. If you watched my Peace video, you know I'm the one Peace fan in this entire world. So I'm going to go with Peace here without really any more explanation than that. Hoax versus Right Where You Left Me. Definitely is going to go to Right Where You Left Me. I almost struggled to kind of remember what Hoax sounds like, so that kind of tells me that it wasn't that memorable to me, but I still remember it being a good song. I just don't remember a lot about it. It's Time to Go versus The Lakes. This one's hard because I feel like the messages are almost the same too. The Lakes is like her finally getting out of that life, and It's Time to Go is kind of grasping with the decision of leaving. I'm looking at it and I'm not trying to skew my results, but if I pick It's Time to Go, that would make the albums evenly matched. But if I pick The Lakes, then that would be saying that I think Folklore is the better album. And I don't know if that's the statement that I want. I think both albums are incredible in their own right. So I feel like it's only right to keep them even. So I'm going to say It's Time to Go is the better song. I don't want that to feel like a cop-out saying that both albums are great, but I genuinely think so. I think they are such different bodies of work that I really wasn't expecting going into this series. but that's kind of my thoughts on the track by track. I know this is kind of a longer video, and I know probably most of you didn't sit through this, which is completely okay. I know I probably get boring at this point, but tell me what you thought of my ranking of Evermore. Tell me what you think about this track by track ranking. Let me know your thoughts overall and kind of say your piece, folklore stands. Say your piece with Folklore and Evermore, because pretty much after this we don't have really any more content with these two albums. So we're going to be kind of closing the chapter on the Folklore Evermore Forest and kind of moving into her pop and country music. So let me know your last thoughts on these albums, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.